Everybody. This is John Andrews with Citadel 6, and this is our last Tech Talk for 2023. We have three experienced professionals here to talk with us today about IT budgeting. We're going to start out with Josh Gamble. Josh is the Director of Information Services at the City of Longview. And he has 20 years of experience resolving complex problems. During his 15 years at the City of Longview, he has held multiple positions such as technician, specialist, system security administrator, and infrastructure manager. During his time off, he enjoys spending time with his children, watching horror movies, and seeing how long of a password he can remember. So welcome to Josh. Next, we have Daniel Sitton. Daniel is CEO and founder of Guardian Technology Group. He's a seasoned professional with a diverse background spanning roles such as CISO, Director of IT, and CIO. With a track record of success in the banking sector and military service in the United States Marine Corps, Daniel brings exceptional technical skills, leadership, and a strong work ethic to any organization. So welcome, Daniel. Next, we have Brent Hudson. He's an MBA ITM. He's also an accomplished VCIO at Synergy Technology with over a decade of experience aligning technology with business objectives. His expertise spans IT support, hardware development, and network design, demonstrated during his nearly 25 years in the industry. His diverse career, including service as an enlisted air crewman in the U.S. Navy, reflects a robust blend of leadership, technical proficiency, and strategic insight. So welcome, Brent. So, as mentioned, we're going to be talking about IT budgeting. And so the format of this is we have a general outline here. We will take questions at any time from anyone, so please ring in. And so our outline right now is going to include staffing, hardware, software, and projects. Those are the general categories that we're going to be talking about in regards to budgeting today. So we're going to start, we'll start at the top with Mr. Josh. Talking about staffing, how do you guys stay competitive whenever with, you're competing for good technical resources out there. How do you stay competitive?
So we have to compete with the private sector because we're government. One of the biggest draws for us is the office culture that we've built. Our interview process is fairly intense per candidate. It's about 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours for that process. That's pretty much it for us. And we're government. I can't really do a whole lot with the pay scale. The only way we can really increase the pay scale if we raise taxes. And last I checked, that's frowned upon.
It is. So do you find that maybe your benefits help you compete?
They do. I mean, we have a good benefits package. So I think that's a good draw for staff.
Okay. All right. Daniel, what do you think? How do you stay competitive when you're trying to hire new team members or even retain what you do have?
Well, like Josh said, I think the culture and the environment that he's building is going to be most important, especially, I'm speaking for myself, but especially when you're looking at municipal technical departments. The fact also that's strong is getting to work on so many different environments and things for someone who's just coming into that job role is quite a catch too. The other thing that has helped me in the past, along with that culture, is making sure that everybody gets training if they want it. Now, that doesn't seem like that's a big deal, but IT engineers, administrators, network guys, security guys, if you can give them a training package every year, a lot of them will stay just for that, as long as it's not a hostile environment. And then making sure that you push that environment where, hey, we're all sharing information, we're all working together. If somebody's in a bad way, we're all gonna get together and we're gonna help solve that problem in a quick and efficient way, and focus on the customer or the client. But okay, that's usually what I've seen.
All right. Okay, Brent, how about you?
Well, I don't not really involved that much in the hiring process internally, but I know we do have a great group of folks. We're constantly upgrading technologies, working in different environments with the clients that we work with. So, I mean, I think a lot of it is the team dynamic, being able to work together. We treat each other like family pretty much.
Yeah.
We have that type of a environment. So it really helps to both retain and maintain those that we have. Our, most of our group have been here, 10 years plus. We've got a good retention from that standpoint, just because of that type of environment that we have.
Okay. So from a budget perspective, you guys, you'll basically do what you can as far as pay what, I guess, collectively, what's a fair wage, and then budget for possible training, and then everything else is all about the environment that you're building. Is that basically a good summary of? Okay.
Hey, John,
Absolutely.
two other things. I don't mean to
Sure.
extend the time, but two other things that
Yeah.
I think are helpful are, one, offering a fully remote package where whoever you're looking for, an engineer, administrator, whatever, offering that fully remote package is very enticing to this sector. The other that's helped me in the past is looking for what are going through, talking to the team and saying, hey, what are our most time consuming, repeatable processes that we've got? Is it patching? Is it antivirus? Is it so on and so? What are creating users, resetting passwords, something like that? Those are the ones that you want to create a list and then look on ways that you can outsource it. And then use that training to build up your engineers you've got in house so that they can be working on the hard problems. Those repeatable processes are things that you could outsource easily just with some good documentation. And that's it. I'll quit talking.
Oh, that's fine. So part of our outline here was considering options for businesses. Outsourcing, which you just pointed out, remote workers, which you pointed out, partnering with education institutions for interns to maybe handle some of those day-to-day things and free up your more expensive resources. And then, the last one that was listed from the group think prior to this was contract labor to bring them in to fill gaps. And, all of these things would kind of feed into what your budgetary requirements are for your staff, like, for example, for 2024. So, if you're going to have a position open, let's say in Q2 2024, at what point would you start recruiting to make sure you fill that, from your experience recently anyway? Josh?
So if we know that we have an upcoming retirement or separation, we start planning for that as quickly as we can. If I have an employee who's going to leave in the next 2 months, we post that now, with hopes that it aligns with when that employee is going to leave. So maybe we can get whoever's going to replace them on board and get some OJT while they're here together. It's worked out for the most part. So I mean that does us well. The city also has a group with human resources that goes out and does recruiting externally. So that's also a bonus for us.
That is a good bonus. It's good to have those resources. Daniel, do you have anything?
I feel the same way. If finances allow, I would give a quarter where you could bring somebody else in, or at least be looking for somebody else, and then that person gets to spend a month with whoever's currently filling that position. And then two, it's important, or in my experience, it's been important for the person that's leaving, making sure that you're supporting them, and that that's a good trust process to where you're saying, hey, I'm happy for you and your family that you're getting this opportunity. If you can help onboard this new guy as much as possible, that'll be super helpful for us, because we truly support you in this decision. But the earlier you could do it, financing allowed, I mean, you want to get it out there, because every network is different.
So generally, sounds like you both would agree that you want to budget for an overlap between your old resources and your new resource, if at all possible. Brent,
Yes.
does that sound right?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. We usually posting right away when we have an opening to get that filled in. We do a lot of work with K-12 and city government, et cetera. So we have to make sure that, the candidates are a good fit based on what we need for that. So we definitely want to put that out there as soon as possible so we can get those candidates looked at.
Okay. All right. So, any other comments regarding the staffing as far from a budgetary standpoint? We had just a few questions written in prior to the discussion, and so we've gone through those. But if anyone else has any questions or any comments on that, if not, we will move on to hardware. This is go ahead.
Just a quick note that if you don't have the budget to outsource some of those repeatable processes, it's tough to begin with, and it's kind of a pain. But if you can build an intern program, that first year is going to be hard. But after that, I mean, you can pay them minimum wage to $15 or $12 an hour, and that helps a lot without having to pay the cost of outsourcing. You still have someone who, it's not going to be as solid as an outsourced product, but you can take some of that off your engineers and your administrators. They'll be a lot more appreciative for that, the fact that you're thinking of them, and then you're still saving money to where you can invest that back into your main team.
Okay, that makes sense. Any disagreement, Brent or Josh?
No, it makes sense.
Okay. Well, cool. Thanks for that, Daniel. All right. Let's see. Let's talk about hardware. Budgeting for hardware for, let's just say that 2024 or 2025, depends on when you guys watch this. You consider end of life that are coming up the next year. How do you track that? How do you consider what software you're going to need? What other considerations in regards to primarily hardware, but we can actually, group software into this as well. How do you do that budgetary process? And so, Josh, I'll start with you this time.
So our hardware and software planning process is fairly comprehensive. My group's responsible for essentially all hardware that routes on the network. So network switches, access points, computers. I mean, if you name it, we're responsible for it. So our forecast goes out 7 to 10 years. We plan for a 5-year replacement cycle on desktops. We plan for a 7 to 10 year replacement cycle on network equipment like access points, firewalls, stuff like that. We pay attention to end of life announcements for any technology that we have, be it hardware or software, and we kind of plan around those. Usually we get those in far in advance enough so that we can plan for it. Sometimes we don't. So sometimes we just kind of have to work through those punches as they come to us. But I mean, it comes down to planning. I mean, I have a spreadsheet for anything that you can possibly imagine. And anytime somebody's like, well, we need to replace computers, how many should be planned to replace in 3 years? I can do an estimate of what we're going to replace in 3 years based off of what we're going to do in the next 2. So
yeah, that makes sense. And so you're working off of known inventories then? Correct. All right. So that's something I would definitely want to point out to those of you that are watching an inventory with detailed information of not just the model number, but firmware and when it was purchased, and if you can get end of life and put it into your inventory. That way you can do some sorting and planning is a much easier from that perspective. Brent, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, from a managed services provider standpoint, we do very similar. We have automated tools that gather that information for us, that will develop those reports. It has links into the major providers or manufacturers, Dell, HP, et cetera, Lenovo, that will basically gather that information for us and put together that lifecycle management report for me. Usually what I like to do with the clients as a virtual CIO is I'll sit down with them and we'll do a 3 to 5 year plan Here's what's coming up next year. Here's what's coming up 3 years from now, and so forth. And that way, no surprises. I'm looking at subscription services. I'm looking at firewall renewals, hardware, desktop servers, everything from that standpoint, and planning that out ahead of time so that they have that budget lined out for the next 3 to 5 years, and they can use that as their guide and for budgeting standpoint. So that's
So from,
using those automated tools from that
yes.
standpoint.
So from your experience, do you agree with the 5-year desktop cycling?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes, we stick with the industry standard 5-7 years, as Josh mentioned. Just making sure that that goes into. A lot of times, what we run into, especially in a server environment, is we plan for that 5-year refresh on that server hardware, and it's usually just because even though you can extend that warranty out for another couple of years to get some more life out of it, 9 times out of 10 you've probably outgrown it. And you're having to go back and revisit, adding additional hard drives or et cetera. So we try to stick with that refresh cycle just so that we keep it current, keep it on the current operating systems, keep it on, from that standpoint and keep them going just to make their, secure.
Good deal. Daniel, thoughts?
I agree. Josh and Brent are exceptionally more intelligent than I am. So I'm just going to ride up their coattails as much as possible. But the things that have helped me in the past is making sure that you've got a strong communication partnership with accounting, and also whatever executives or whatever leaders are in charge of budgeting and procurement. So getting with accounting and making sure that they are keeping their records correct, and not just putting in like Dell server and we bought on this date, but actually I used to sync their records with our inventory so that every month if we disposed of anything, they got an Excel sheet of it. They kept their stuff clean. But at the same time, you can use them to say, hey, how many desktop servers, router switches, firewalls do we have that are going to hit our depreciation schedule this year, and let them do some of that work for you so that you're not having to keep up with all of it. The other thing is making sure that you get with the CFO, the CEO, and get them to approve on paper in a policy or a process or something to where they agree with whatever depreciation schedule that you've worked out. So that they know once those records are correct, hey, we need to budget for this much because this software, this server, this many desktops are going to be end of life, and we're going to depreciate those. So we're going to have to set aside money for that. And then you don't have to like beg for it every time you want to go in there. The other thing on communication is if you're in front of the board, or anytime you have a meeting or a one-on-one with the top level executives, you want to mention, hey, don't forget 2024, we've got like $150K that we've got to spend on technology, or this software is no longer going to be supported. We've been working on this project for the last 6 months. We're going to have to spend that money. So don't forget to budget for it.
Right.
Communication is the
100%.
biggest hurdle, not having to go back to the well and say, hey, can we please get this, putting those processes in place. Go ahead, Brent.
No, I agree 100%. And usually what I try to do, depending on the size of the client that I have, is I will usually try to budget a quarter of workstations per year. That way I can spread out that capital expense so that's not a big chunk all at once. If you're doing a few machines per year, you can spread that out and cycle that through per department per se. And that way you're not hitting all at once with a big refresh all at the same time. So,
right. Yeah,
That's
that's one of the things I was going to bring up, Brent, is it's a good thing, not just from a capital perspective, but also from a resource perspective, because somebody's going to have to be installing those. And if you get 150 in, and they're like, well, they're just sitting there. Well, we're installing them as we can,
right.
as opposed to getting 10 in per month. That way your resources are able to handle it. So excellent comments, guys. So that really, you'd mentioned software, Josh. You guys take the same general perspective when you're approaching like software renewals and all this? How do you guys? It's really hard to look into the future. Let's just use Microsoft as an example and guess what their new licensing model is going to be. How do you budget for that kind of thing? Do you just say, I need $100 per minute because we're using Microsoft, or what do you do? How do you do that?
So we have a ton of software that is work group specific. So we follow the manufacturer on those for whatever the recommendations are. Occasionally that software is going to hit an end of life, so we have to do the legal process. We've got to go out for bid and do all of that. But for softwares that don't follow that schedule, we will, like for Office, we started this year budgeting in the funds to just have new Office on that new computer, so we don't have to worry about upgrading the computer that they had. So we'll replace a computer. When we replace it, we get the old one back, and we don't have to keep track of that old license because the license was assigned to the computer, not the person. So we used to assign licenses like that to a person, but it got difficult to track. We've got 850 employees in the city, and there's turnover here and there, and you don't remember who had what and when. So we just started assigning software inventory to the computer, not the person, and it makes it easier for us. So, and then we just follow the manufacturer's life cycle. Like we have tasks every quarter to look up our software that we manage and find out if it's been announced and when it is, when will it go end of life, and when do we need to start budgeting for a software refresh.
Okay. All right. Brent, do you have anything different?
Very similar. As I mentioned before, the tool that we use to track hardware life cycles also will track software life cycles. So it will tell us ahead of time when things are expired or about to expire. We can keep track of it and move from that standpoint. I think the move to Office and Microsoft 365 has helped greatly because it makes it easier to manage on a per user basis from a licensing standpoint, where we can shift licenses back and forth from there. Any other software, it's usually just based on the manufacturer's life cycle or the distributor's life cycle to make sure that we keep it up to date and secure. I think the biggest thing we have to keep an eye on is obviously cybersecurity. That's the big word du jour, if you want. It's an $8 trillion industry right now, so we have to make sure that whatever you're using is secure, making sure that keep the bad guys out as best we can.
Yep.
So
absolutely. So is there any way you could share the tool that you guys use?
Well, it's a tool designed specifically for managed services providers. I believe it's called ScalePad, but it's a MSP type tool that basically and it integrates with your RMM system in order to gather that information.
All right, cool. Daniel?
Yeah, and anybody doesn't know what RMM is, it's remote monitoring and management, because I did not know what that meant when I got into the service industry. No.
TLAs.
I would say Brent and Josh, nailed it. But the other ace you have up your sleeve is making sure that you're focusing on, in the communication, in layman's terms, the security and vulnerability management, saying, hey, this is going into life. We have to replace it. We cannot be that company that has these security vulnerabilities that are going to hamper us in the future. And if you don't want to do that, then I need you to sign this risk acceptance letter. But the other thing is business continuity, especially when they don't want to replace aging hardware, or say there's a custom coded database or program that's out there that hasn't been updated, has not had a security assessment done on it. Those kind of things. I usually start with the conversation with, hey, we've got these 4 to however many things that have not been updated. We haven't done a security assessment. What do y'all's offline procedures look like for that department? Do y'all already have those written down and configured in process? And have y'all went through a mock performance of that to make sure that those offline processes are still working? Then they'll come back and say, no, we don't have any offline processes for that. Well, this is like a 15-year database that hadn't been touched, it's going to go down eventually. And that's why I've kept bringing it up that, hey, we've got to replace this. We've got to set aside money for a project on this. Either we need to go through and do a full offline process for this so that if it's down for 2 to 10 days, we know that we can still continue our business, or we need to start that project of assessing how much it's going to cost and what we need to do to get that done. Usually they don't want to do the work of writing up all those offline processes and getting those into place and then doing some mock trials of them. So usually you can talk them into, as long as you keep bringing it up. Remember, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Let's see. The last group here is projects. And budgeting for projects is kind of a science. And so the points I have down are the infrastructure and IT upgrades. And then, how do you organize and review the business needs with each department in your organization? How can you tell what IT resources are going to be required for those? So Brent, why don't you start?
Well, I'm usually working directly with the business owners or whoever that C-level executive is with the company from a budgeting standpoint. Project-wise, we have an internal project manager that we usually assign that will go in and do the assessment as far as what parts and pieces are needed in order to make that happen. What I usually try to tell my client, tell me what the end goal is, what end result are you looking to achieve, and let us put together a solution to get you to that point, whether it be IT related or otherwise. So from a department level standpoint, it's usually by the time I'm involved, it's already filtered up to that owner of the company that says, because I'm usually dealing with SMBs, small business, medium-sized businesses that are just, hey, I want to do X, what do I need to make this happen? So we put together that project solution to get them where they want to go.
Okay. All right. Daniel, how about you? How would you budget for projects and the resources to run those projects? I mean,
one is I would make sure and try to have like a quarterly or biannual meeting with each of the departments saying, hey, what do you got? Because sometimes they will go out there, they will get the shadow IT, they'll put it on their company credit card, and they will try to implement it. So making sure that saying, hey, we want to slot these projects so that they can be implemented completely and fully. Also making sure you communicate that, hey, you cannot bring in a new technology without adapting your processes, which is one reason why a lot of technology projects fail, is because they want to bring in this new shiny tool, but they do not want to change anything about the way that they've been doing it. It is very frustrating when you've got 3 to 4 to 20 guys working on a project for 6 months to get it all in, and then it fails because, no, that's not the way we do it. We do it this way, and you need to make the new software do it that way because that's the way we do it. So pushing that during the project meeting, say, hey, if you see something, say, hey, we'll have to change this process because it's going to interfere with the way this software works. That's not really have to do with budgeting, but it will kick you in the butt if you don't hit that up and keep it front in your mind. And then they'll cancel the software.
Right. And then that's a sunk cost. So
and
that does impact budget for sure.
Yeah, and then budgeting for, usually when you do the contract negotiation, you can get them to throw in the training and skill development, or say like, hey, I know you don't want everybody to have 1 year's access to your web portal, whatever. Can you have somebody come in and do an entire group class that we could record, and we'll pay for the flight and the hotel or something like that? But usually you can get them throw in some kind of training if you're getting it for the entire company. But making sure that everybody takes the training, that they're doing all that. Otherwise, it will increase your amount of time supporting that software exponentially, and it's going to piss you off too at the same time. The fact that you have to do this when you gave them all the resources, you made it as easy as possible, they still don't want to do it, and now you're paying for it. I mean, it sounds like Brent and Josh have seen this before, so maybe it's not just me.
Maybe. I think if you've been in IT longer than 5 minutes, you might have seen that. All right, Josh, what's your
So
your sense?
the first part of that process is knowing that there's something coming down the pipe.
Amen.
I've been in situations where, years ago, where a group will buy a new shiny toy and they're like, hey, we bought this thing, we need a server to put it on. We're like, great, who's going to buy the server? So the way we've been working through that is we started probably 2-3 years ago. We started quarterly meetings. Conversations are just like 15-20 minute chats with department heads. Just, hey, what are you guys working on? What do you need? We try to be as visible as possible when we're out and about in the organization and listen to what folks are talking about, because sometimes you'll find out about a need or a possible project in some random casual conversation, like, hey, we were looking at this new piece of software, and one of my folks will be like, oh, we didn't know that. So they'll take a note and they'll get with me and we'll go back and talk to their director and be like, hey, what's this thing you're looking at? We might already have this. So, and we find that out sometimes where we have a lot of tools at our fingertips for a lot of our departments, and they just don't know that they exist. So maybe they're looking for something that we already have.
Right.
We can save costs there, so we don't have to budget for things we already have. A lot of it's just knowing that it's coming.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
Hey, John, right quick, and is the making sure that you do a risk assessment and a business continuity assessment on whatever software, especially if it's on-prem, if you're going to keep it on your premises, like a server that you're hosting it yourself, and it's not cloud-based, making sure that there's some kind of business continuity capability in there, and also that there's some kind of risk assessment done to where it's not wide open. It's the worst. Everybody has to have, this is the worst thing, is they buy a software for 100 people and everybody has to have local admin on their desktops in order for it to function.
They don't have to have local admin.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what they tell you.
Yeah, the only problem is if that software's got that in there, every time you call support, they'll be like, well, they need local admin. And then they'll be like, well, then we can't support you. So then you've got to buy another product that goes along with it, like Auto Elevate or something like that. And then you've increased the cost of the project where you could have got something that already had it in there based off of the money you're buying for additional software. But that's bit me in the tail quite a few times, is no business continuity capability whatsoever, and then security or vulnerability management on the product itself is horrible. And they're just trying to make money. They don't know that they should be asking those questions. That's the other reason why, as soon as they think it's about something and you have to do it, just like anything, you've got to communicate this over and over. Every time you go on a call, every time you talk to the leaders of the company, if we're thinking about doing something, you have to bring in IT, and you have to, all it is a quick email. It'll take 5 seconds for you to say, hey, we're thinking about this, send it. If you don't bring me in, there's a chance that we're going to get all this way in, use all these people's time, and then we have to cancel it because it's going to go against what the risk that we've approved. Or whatever our risk appetite statement is, it's going to go against that, and then we had to cancel it because we don't have any magic wands. We can't make it do whatever you want it to do and still be secure and the ability to recover it. So that's important too. Communicating that IT always needs to be involved.
Yeah. Good point.
John, something that we ran into a couple of years ago, and we were really bad about this, is when it comes to looking at tech, the tech department would build a business process for a different group the way we thought it should work, instead of building technology with their business processes and how they think it should work. So we've kind of changed that concept. So we're not in the business to tell you how to do your job. That's not what we're here for. We're here to figure out how you do your job and to make sure you have the tools you need to
Absolutely.
accomplish that
Absolutely.
task successfully. So we've changed that philosophy over the last few years. It was a difficult transition. Just
I can
had
imagine.
to change our mindset on how that worked. And when you do that, those other department heads and those other folks outside your department, they are more willing to say, hey, we're looking at some stuff. What do you guys think about this? Can we talk about that? Do we have this technology available to us already? So
Yeah.
it helps those conversations.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've had clients come to me and say, hey, I want 10 widgets. Okay, well, what are you doing with it? I want to do X, Y, Z. Well, that's not what that's for. What you really need is this, or it's already included in something you already have.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So yeah, we've had those discussions on numerous occasions in those particular events. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so, Daniel, you keyed in on this earlier. It's all about communication, communicating with your different departments, communicating with your finance team so that they don't approve any technology purchases that aren't signed off on by IT. So even if the department does whatever they want to do, they are stopped at the people that pay for it, and they route it over to you. I've had to do that with several companies, and it's just a safety net. Most of the time I never had to use it, but if I get something from the CFO that says, "Hey, have you looked at this new purchase for 700 widgets for the sales team?" And I'm like, "No." So I think that communication is super important, and so I that's the common theme I'm hearing from you guys, and it's I just can't underscore how important that would be. Let's see. That's the end of our outline. Do you guys, Josh, Brent, and Daniel, do you guys have anything that in regards to budgeting for IT that we haven't discussed, or anything that you would like to close with before we take questions?
I think communicating to our stakeholders is probably the most important thing that we do. I mean, it doesn't do anybody good if we build this brand new fancy system and it doesn't fit a business need. So we just have to make sure what we're doing aligns with their mission goals. And the only way to find that out is communication.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool.
I
Well,
think
great.
too that it is building a culture within your team, like Josh and Brent had just been saying, hey, we want to support you guys. We want where you can make money, where you can be successful. That's what we're here for. I think that's going to open up conversations a lot more than being the gatekeeper, being the guy, even if IT has to sign off on it. If you're the police officer of what can be installed and what can't be, because maybe it's not easy for IT, or you don't want to think outside the box, but it's like the perfect fit for them. You've got to show some empathy of where they're at and what their focus is, what they're the subject matter experts on, and then you'll start getting those like, hey, do we already have this capability, or what do you think about this project? It may take a year, but that will start coming into fruition, and it helps a huge amount when you've got a trust relationship with your stakeholders, like Josh was saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. Some of the things I've seen is, our IT staff, we would send someone out to each department on a quarterly basis to spend at least a day looking at what they're doing, what tools they're using, what software they're using, because you don't know what you don't know. That those guys are, just like you're saying, are subject matter experts on making widgets or whatever their jobs are. The IT perspective, we know, or we've seen, well, we have this product that could really help you guys out. That's internal chat or whatever that is that they don't know, and they may be, this is it becomes all about efficiency sometimes. we can make you more efficient if you want to use this, and especially if you already have it. So I think, Josh, you might have mentioned this. You need to have a presence in the organization, and
you do very much so.
I like to organize that. I don't like to have an accidental presence. I like to have a predictable presence in the organization, so they know, Matt is coming on the first Tuesday of every month, and he's going to sit with accounting or fill in the blank. And I think that takes you a long way. That also builds a relationship, so that whenever they do they do receive a sales call from somebody that has the best way to make widgets, and they're not just giving them a credit card saying, yes, that's exactly what we need. They're gonna call Matt, and they're gonna say, hey, Matt, since you came by, this guy has the best way to make widgets. And we can say, well, no, that's not secure. There's no business continuity to that, but I'm
It was
happy
written
to
for
help
Windows
you.
7.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You don't even have a Macintosh. What are you doing? That's
Yeah.
yeah. So, the great comments, you guys. Do we have any questions at this time? Feel free to put them into the chat, and I'll get them answered. Or go ahead.
I was just going to say, while we're waiting on those questions, especially if any IT directors or something watch this in the recording or on right now, be sure and be like Josh and Brent had mentioned, be proactive and intent about meeting with people. Do not wait for an invitation. Because you're not going to get it. It just like putting these processes in where you do a risk assessments, you do those quarterly meetings or biannual meetings, that takes away from your already busy schedule. But it is nowhere near the cost or time involved for your team of going through a project where you know very little, or you're having to implement something that you've never even heard of, and they want you to buy a server, like Josh was saying earlier. The time involved with that, and then the discussions that you've got to have saying, hey, this is not going to work. There's no way. And then you've got 4 people who's already invested in this project and have put money down on it that are telling you it has to work. Spending that extra time being intent about making sure you're making those meetings, getting people to join, communicating as much as possible, that it's a game changer. It takes a little while to get used to it and being proactive on it, but once you get it involved and get it rolling, it is a game changer on how IT works with the rest of the company.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I have quarterly business review meetings with my clients on a regular basis, and before we close the meeting, I'm already scheduling the next one. Right. So we're well in advance. As far as, okay, here's, that way the idea is no surprises. I want you to be well aware of what's going on from an IT standpoint way in advance, so that, when something's going to come due or when something's going to expire.
Yeah. Yeah. Passive IT is, I think should be the thing of the past. I mean, you have to insert yourself in the conversations and develop those relationships, to all of your points. All right, so let's see. We've got a couple of questions coming in here. Are you currently doing an internship? You said you use them to save money. How do you go about creating an internship? And so, Daniel, I think if I remember right, you had mentioned interns, and I know I did.
So the way that you do an internship program is first you've got to get that communication out of the way, and you've got to get people knowing that, just like we were saying, where one of your stakeholders comes to you and say, hey, we just bought a server, we need you to get it fixed. Okay, well, just like that with accounting and the executive level team, and accounts payable, things like that, they don't want to hear that you just implemented something and they have just heard about it. So you've got to set those meetings, go through the logistics of it. This is what you're wanting. This is how you want it to work. this is the area or who you're going to be working with. The second thing is you've got to get out there and start looking at like, hey, I'm going to go to Kilgore College for lunch or something. I'm going to go talk to the director of IT over there. We're going to see what kind of intern program he may be thinking about, and go through all the local colleges like TJC, UT Tyler, Kilgore, all the ones around here, and get with those. Then you've got to start working on a process to where you're communicating that out. You've got a process of how it's going to work. You've set a time limit on how long they will be interns, what your expected pay range is for those interns, and also write out. And this is kind of a pain of doing all this stuff. Like I said, the first year implementing an intern program is a real pain, but once you get it in place and there's an expectation of it with the rest of the departments, it is so much smoother and it is so helpful. But you have to write down, because the first question you're going to get after it gets approved is, well, what are they going to do? What do you plan on them doing? So you need to write down what are those repeatable processes that take away from your current team that they could start implementing or putting into that program. And you've got to have that training. You've got to have it to where they can come in and they can start working immediately. But the first thing is getting out there and doing the communication work, creating almost like a mini project for it, bringing people in for quick 30-minute meetings, say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. I think this could really, let me show you how this is going to help our team and build up morale, and also help the company be stronger and end. That's where you start. And then you want to start having your meetings, getting out there, talking to the different universities, see if they've already got an intern program in place. And then you can borrow a lot of what they've already established and cut down that work, so you're not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah. We created a couple of intern positions this last year, and we started with just treating it like a regular position with a job description, with a list of duties, organized it in such a way that they're going to be part of the team, and we need to define what that role is, what the responsibilities will be. And then that's when we got with the regional education institutions, and we found our fit. Who was going to be the best fit in regards to recruiting them and being successful in those positions. And we were very successful with those, and we look forward to it. And so Josh, Brent, do you guys have interns?
We don't do a lot of intern work just because of our client nature of our clients, because we do a lot of on-site remote visits. We send SEs to those remote locations, so we don't do a lot with interns from that standpoint. We've done some in the past internally, just with some of the work overseeing or looking over the shoulder, et cetera. But as far as actual sending interns out, we don't do a lot of that.
Yeah, I understand. And it may be hard as an MSP, I would suspect. Josh?
So we don't currently do internships. We have in the past. It's not for lack of want. We don't physically have a place to put a person. If you want an internship to come, you need to view them as a part-time employee, and they need to have a space to sit at, a space to do their job. We don't have that right now. That is a conversation that I've had with those above me, so it's something that we're interested in. I've had a conversation with some folks over at Kilgore College about it also. So it's on the table and it's on the horizon. I just don't know how far out it is, because I can't generate a physical workspace for somebody. I wish I could, but I can't.
Well, I could lease you one. How about that? Just call me, Josh. All right, let's see. We have someone that says, in regards to working with your vendors, let them know that you have other options and make them work for your business. End of quarter, end of fiscal year always brings costs down a little. Yeah. And this guy, he used to be a vendor of mine. He says, I always did that to him as a vendor. And absolutely, I've closed deals on December 31st at 10 p.m. And you get the deals you want. Salespeople are incented at the end of quarters, end of years. and they oftentimes are going to do whatever it takes to close the deal if it's within their power. So good point, very, very good point there. When you're negotiating, make sure you're negotiating from a position of strength. And vendors are not sacred, so I beat them often. Let's see. Do we have any other? Yes. Somebody says spend the company's money like it's yours, and I agree with that absolutely.
We're very cautious and frugal with our funding because it's taxpayer dollars. So we make vendors compete for almost everything that we do. It's fair. That way we get the best price, and it's no secret. We're transparent about it. We're like, hey, I need quotes from these people. You guys tell me how much you're going to charge for your stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. And Brent, you do the same, right?
Oh, I agree 100%. I like to. I'm not a salesperson. I don't claim to be a salesperson. Don't want to be a salesperson. My job is mainly to be the client's advocate for technology and make sure they get what they need and it fits within their budget the best we can. So I'm working directly with them and I'm trying to find cost savings wherever I can, depending on what they're looking for. I look at it as a partnership. We're contract employees, so and from that standpoint, I view myself as their employee, and I'm looking at cost savings wherever I can find them.
Makes sense. Okay, we are at the end of our time. Definitely appreciate Brent, Josh, Daniel. You guys have done a great job. I've really enjoyed it. I think it was informative, and if I could, I would give each of you a gift certificate to the next yodeling session of Catherine's. But anyway,
it's big money.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks, and I guess that's it. So y'all have a great day.
Appreciate y'all.
Merry Christmas.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. You
Thanks,
too.
guys.